Hello students, welcome back. This module begins our third and final topic of Unit 1, Ecology. Ecology is a large topic and it will have a number of modules. This module is 1.3.1. Ecology is a very interesting topic. We can see here's a view of an ecosystem showing some white rhinos. There you just saw a warthog run by. That looks like a little meerkat going across now. White rhinos were so named, but not because of the color of their skin. It's not particularly white. It's because of the width of their muzzle or their mouths. They were Weit rhinos, W-E-I-T, which is the Afrikaans word for wide, and later English speakers interpreted that as white. Of course, incorrectly. The definition of ecology is the study of how organisms interact with one another and with their non-living environment. Ecology is a rigorous branch of biology. It's an experimental science. Sometimes people are confused and think that ecology refers to kind of the green movement, that is environmental conservation, that kind of thing. That's not the case in this usage of ecology. For us to introduce ecology to you, we're going to look at some vocabulary terms. We're going to begin with the word organism. An organism is any living thing, a living creature. A species is a group of similar organisms that mate with one another and not with other organisms. So that's a sexually defined definition of species. An additional term is population. This is a group of interacting individuals of the same species in a specific area. An example with very well-defined boundaries would be all of the sunfish in a pond. A pond has very discrete boundaries, and aquatic organisms do not go beyond that. In some terrestrial populations, we find that it's more difficult to define exactly where the boundary may be as the different populations and habitats intergrade. An additional term of importance in ecology is a term niche, or niche as the British would say it, but we'll stick with niche. And this is the way in which an organism uses the environment and the resources therein to make a living. It's the role that's played by a particular species in its environment. The third grade definition, which you probably shouldn't use in a college biology class, but I include it here just to give you additional understanding, is that niche would be an organism's job. If we look at the next term, that would be habitat, and the habitat is a place where an organism or a population of organisms typically live. The third grade version would be, this is the organism's address, if you will. Continuing on with these introductory definitions, community. Community is all the organisms that live in a similar environment. And so this would be, we could take for an example, the Huachuca Mountains and all the populations that are there of all living things. So everything from little microbes, bacteria, to plants, to fungi, to animals, including birds and mammals. All of those would be members of the biological community of the Huachuca Mountains. If we included the non-living environment of the Huachuca Mountains, rather than a community, we'd now be studying an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a community of different species interacting with one another and with the physical environment. And if we collectively take all the ecosystems of the Earth, this makes up the biosphere. Here we see a photograph of an ecosystem. This would be the African savanna community, a waterhole community. Very diverse group of animals, very interesting. We'll wrap up this first module by just, in a formal way, looking at the levels of organization that are addressed by ecological studies. It's from the organism through the biosphere. You'll recall that when we introduced to you the concept of life and the definition of what life is, we included therein the levels of organization. And we start all the way down at subatomic particles. Well, an ecologist does not specifically study subatomic particles. The study of ecology starts at the organism, could deal with a study of populations. For example, we have population ecology, community ecology, ecosystem ecology, and we can go all the way up to the biosphere. And so this concludes our introduction. We'll be back with a further module later.